I'm going in search of witches.
Witches.
Witches. I guess you found me out, huh? Yeah. You should come around here on Halloween. You'd really see something then.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we all jump off the roof and fly.
You know, sort of like a coven.
You have placed Vesta under some strange sexual spell.
At what time will we be spellcasting?
Hey there, witches, and welcome to Moonstone Witchery, the podcast where we talk about witchcraft and spirituality in a modern context. My name is Rian Lucker. Thank you for joining me here. Find me in all the places by looking me up by searching Moonstone Witchery, or just visit my website because, you know, I have a super cool store with super cool witchy stuff over there, and I have enchanted items, hand enchanted by me and the elements and the moon and all the deities that I summon to help me enchant things. If you want to learn how to enchant things, you should find me in my academy and join me and all the other lovely witches that are in the Moonstone Witchery Witchcraft Academy. I would love to have one-on-one interaction with you over there. Okay. So there's this thing. You like when I bury the lead and I just start talking, but I don't tell you what I'm talking about? There's this thing that I always forget about. And I don't know why, because this is a very relevant thing. And I thought it would make for a cool episode. There was an article that I read about this, and so I thought it would be pertinent. Let me just dig up the lead and tell you what we're talking about now. I want to talk about energy vampires because this is so real and I have lots to say. So bear with me as we meander our way to the info, okay? Energy vampires, what does that even mean? Side note, there is an article or a photo circulating the spiritual corners of the internet and social media about how they had unearthed this lady, I think it was in Poland, where she had been buried with a sickle, which is the thing that the traditional images of the Grim Reaper is carrying. And she had been buried with this sickle planted or placed over her neck, kind of holding her down. And the archaeologists were I shared this actually as a meme on my Instagram, which is moonstone_witchery. Archaeologists were yeah, they buried people with this sickle when they thought they were vampires. And they did this so that when the vampire was supposed to raise from the dead, it wouldn't be able to, right? Because it would try to sit up into this sickle and kind of, get its throat cut, which is a gruesome thought, actually. But also, this person who they had buried, she was all decked out and adorned in glamorous clothes and accoutrements. And they were this was a wealthy sort of aristocracy kind of person. And I was just first of all, don't touch the vampire. Why are archaeologists, if any of you are listening to me, I want to have a conversation. And I don't do interviews on my podcast. If you've been here for 5 seconds, you'll know that this is all just me. There's so many reasons for that. But I keep it solo on purpose. But if there are archaeologists who are listening to this, I want to pick your brain and maybe record something with you. I can make a couple exceptions because I'm intrigued to discover what is happening there. There's this concept of a reverence for the culture that we are exhuming. It's like a direct kind of competitive thing between our desire to have more information and to understand ourselves, in so much as ourselves is represented as a collective over time. Like, we seek to understand ourselves. It's a human thing to understand ourselves. It's why we like personality tests and assessments and our zodiac signs and our human design and all the things that give us more information about ourselves, because innately what we're trying to do is be like, who am I and how do I work so I can get things done? And this is also why it's helpful for you to seek out diagnoses, as I'm like on like a tangent from a tangent from a tangent, but like it's helpful for you to like get a diagnosis. Like if you think you have ADHD, or you think you're on the autism spectrum, or you think that you have some other type of neurodivergence or depression or personality disorder or anything, I want you to seek those diagnoses out, because what those things do is they're not condemning you, they're helping you. They're helping you to understand yourself better, because we all just kind of unfairly wake up in some type of body that we don't know about, and we spend our lives like trying to understand this creature who we're inhabiting. And the more information we can get about these creatures known as us, the better, because then we can work with ourselves to get things done rather than working against ourselves. And that's really the premise of my problem with the culture, is that like the culture is very much like, you're supposed to do things this way, but doing things that way doesn't work for like the majority of us. So I feel like we're here to kind of make sense of ourselves. And on a collective scale, on a bigger picture scale, we're trying to make sense of ourselves in that grand scheme of things, right? Like, what is the story of humanity? What is the story of people over the thousands, millions, whatever, of years in which people have been here? And one of the ways we start to understand ourselves on that collective scale, that big picture, is like, what's the nature of being a human and what has it always been like? It's almost like digging into our own childhood or our own past and these obscured moments, or digging into like our family history and finding out like, what was it like for my mom growing up? Oh, that explains a lot. That's what like archaeology is doing in a way, right? It's like it's resurrecting and exhuming and excavating, which are all like very metaphorical terms, but they're all also very tangible physical things as well. It's bringing back or bringing to light or unearthing all of this information that otherwise would be lost to us, so that we can put some of these puzzle pieces together in order to understand what's been going on in like the collective stage of being a human. But I also would imagine that there is kind of like a quandary, right? Like, especially if you are a spiritually aligned archaeologist, of which I don't know if that is a thing. I don't know if those things are, what's the word when things don't go together? Incongruent. I don't know if those things are incongruent or not. Like, I don't know if the majority of archaeologists are also atheists, or I don't know what they are, but what I do know is that there has to be some type of moral quandary around like respecting these people and their belief systems and their cultures versus seeking to study and understand. And for me, that would be like when an immovable force hits a unstoppable object, or whatever that saying is, whatever that science thing is. I wouldn't know what to do. I would just be kind of paralyzed and frozen, because I want to respect the other cultures. Who am I to be like, oh, you believed that this burial would grant you a certain kind of access to the afterlife, but there's almost like this dismissive energy that you have to have in order to just kind of go in and do the thing. Like, oh, that's just what they believed, like as if they're wrong. How do we know they're wrong? How do you know this wasn't some type of vampire lady? You know what I mean? Like, how do I know that the pharaohs in their magnificent pyramid tombs were not actually paying their toll and bringing their stuff? Like, I don't know that. So it feels kind of like hyper disrespectful. And especially it's like always white people. It's like always white people going in and being like, let me just dig this up because I can, because like like whatever. So to me it's like this like moral quandary, and it's like enough to freeze someone to be like let me just like unearth your final resting place. Like, that to me feels, no matter what era of time something was, like kind of messed up, right? But in any event, we get to learn more about these cultures, and hidden within these practices there might really be, not that I know that whether archaeologists are actually looking for this or not, but like hidden within these practices there might actually be like secret information that's helpful. Because one thing that bothers me is like the Library of Alexandria like burning to the ground, and what did we lose? Like, what did they know? They knew stuff, and that we don't know stuff. And so I'm just kind of like bothered. But so they exhumed this vampire, and I just thought it was interesting because, number one, like I said, I'm kind of like, don't touch her. Leave her the F alone. If she was a vampire, certainly don't touch her. If she wasn't a vampire, she has been through enough. Leave her alone. Like, she deserves to like rest in peace. Like, OMG, but whatever. But I want to talk about energy vampires, because I know there's people out here who really talk about and think about and know about like the folklore kinds of vampires and werewolves and all the things. And we can do a future episode maybe on that. But I want to talk about energy vampires, which are metaphorical vampires, right? And I see, when I'm thinking about energy vampires, to me, that's one kind of spiritual way of kind of reshaping and looking at the concept of like toxic people or like narcissists or, just abusive people in general. And I mean, like all things, there's degrees of this kind of stuff. There are toxic people who are abusive, and that's probably like the most intense degree in one way or another. But then there's like toxic people who are like doing their self-work, but they're still having some toxic qualities. Or there's mostly good people with certain traits that might be toxic. And I think the word toxic kind of gets expanded a little bit bigger than it has to. Like, it's this like terminal diagnosis of things being terrible, but all of us have some qualities that could be categorized, I guess, as being toxic. And our job through shadow work and self-awareness is to figure out where those things are and what they are and what to do with them. But I do see an overlap between especially narcissists and energy vampires. So I thought we could take it apart a little and figure it out. And then there's also the relationship here that I want to talk about too, as it pertains to being an empath and dealing with an energy vampire. And I want to kind of take apart the idea of being an empath too, to a degree, because I know I did an episode called Empath 101 a while back, and this is going to have some of the next layers of that as well. So an energy vampire is somebody who tends to suck all the life out of the room or an interaction or another person. They are somebody who, said differently, is a taker, not a giver, right? So we might all know people like this. Somebody who like only calls you because they want to talk about themselves, or they only call you because they want your advice, but they maybe don't even take it, which is a whole thing. Or they only talk to you because they want to kind of info dump on you or emotionally dump upon you and leave you holding like all these bags of their stuff, and you feel drained. So one way that you can know if someone is an energy vampire is if you leave most interactions with them feeling drained or feeling like wrung out or feeling worn down. And again, I really think that people can go through phases with this kind of thing, meaning like I think that someone could be mostly fine, but when they're under stress, maybe they have energy vampire tendencies. For example, there is someone in my own life right now who does not listen to this podcast, but I'm still not going to identify who they are. And they are in a phase that's really hard for them right now, going through a lot. And they are in, as a result of all the things they're going through, they're in like an energy vampire space. This is not who they normally are. At least I don't think so. When I reflect back, I don't really believe this is how they actually normally are. This is a response they're having to being so overwhelmed by their own life that they literally don't have any room for anyone but themselves. And so when you talk to this person right now, they are singularly fixated on talking about themselves, and they are 1000% closed off to hearing anything else. Not only are they not able to ask any questions of the person they're talking to, but if the person they're talking to starts to like speak to them about themselves, they like literally can't even take it in. Like it's just like bouncing. It's like I'm watching it like ricochet off of them, and it's just like falling to the ground. And they are asking for help, but not really able to absorb it or to take it in or to like do any of the things. So right now they're in this very intense phase, and it's hard because relationships in our lives are here for connection. Like we are seeking relationships with other people in this world because we want to connect. And when we're healthy and in a healthy space and having healthy relationships, we're wanting to connect from a place of authenticity and shared vulnerability and like being willing to be seen, and accepted. So we're showing up kind of vulnerable and open and raw and hoping that the other person can hold that and accept that and take us in. And that's when we're in a healthy place. Of course, when we're not in a healthy place, we seek relationships to like fill our trauma voids or to trauma bond with someone or to kind of put a balm over our own insecurities. I mean, I've had entire relationships with certain people because it was like a faux way of trying to heal my insecurities. Like, whatever, I won't go on that story. But I'm just saying, like, when we're having relationships from a healthy, grounded place, it's like a vulnerability, shared connection thing. When we're having relationships from a not healed space, it is kind of a challenging space. Like it's a push and pull or a power struggle. But even in those words, a push and pull, like we're both pushing, we're both pulling. We're a power struggle, we're both struggling for the power. Like we're both engaged. When we're dealing with an energy vampire, though, this is a person who is kind of siphoning off the life force energy from whomever they're with. So they're dipping in to catch all the good vibes, and then they're leaving without contributing any good vibes back to kind of complete the cycle. The reason I say that narcissists really are energy vampires is because narcissists really are energy vampires. And let me talk about why, okay? The qualities of someone who is a narcissist is like they are kind of like, the first and most foundational thing is that they are self-focused. If you have a relationship in your life, whether it's romantic or familial or friendship or whatever, it's going to look like everything is about them. Literally, truly, literally, someone who is a narcissist really cannot fathom that other people are having just as real of a life experience as they are. They truly cannot comprehend that something can happen and have nothing to do with them. Like seriously, like they truly believe that everything that happens is somehow about them or an extension of them. And that is the world view in which they operate. So you could be innocently, doing the dishes, and the narcissist with whom you cohabitate might be like, well, I didn't do them because I was busy, so I don't appreciate you doing the dishes at me like that. I was going to get to it. Like they're going to take your actions like personally. They're going to think that everything you do is somehow about them. And a narcissist is seeking to control you because they view you as an extension of themselves. They truly think that you are all immersed in them in some way, and that you aren't ever innocent in all things. And just as a side note, one of the foundational premises of having a successful and healthy and a life grounded in staying in your own peace is to view others as innocent. And this is completely unrelated, I think, to energy vampires, but when we view others as innocent, or when we view others as not being out to get us, it makes it so easy to extend the benefit of the doubt to people. And what it does is it allows us to stay in our own peace. Because if we view people as trying to be harmful, or as having negative intentions, or being foundationally negative in some way, we are always on guard, and we're always on the lookout for the harm that we just know is coming. And this unto itself is narcissistic. And a lot of us have some narcissistic tendencies. That doesn't make you an evil, bad, or wrong person. It means that you were like raised by a narcissist, or you were exposed to some narcissism early on in your life, or at some point in your life, or you were just dealt with people who have kind of infused your innocence with negativity, and therefore you learned how to do that to others. But the truth is, most people are just doing their thing, not trying to do anything harmful, not even really thinking about you. So when you can drop your guard and you can assume that most people are just having positive or neutral intentions. And if this is hard for you, practice seeing people as neutral, not as negative or positive, just as neutral, because that's even more honestly like often the case. But if you can do that, you will feel safer in general, because if you view the world as being out to get you, and you treat every single person like they're out to get you, then every single person naturally is your enemy, because that's how you're treating them. That's your default position. And this is what narcissists do. But if you treat every single person as neutral or even positive, guess what happens? The people who actually are out to get you become way more obvious, because you're assuming the best of everyone. That someone who does not have the best of intentions, they stand out like a sore thumb. They are like so clear. But when you assume everyone's bad, finding the actually bad people is really hard. It's like searching for a needle in a haystack, because you're treating everyone like they're all bad. So how do you know who's actually bad? If you treat everyone like they're all good or neutral, the people who are bad are so obvious to you. Okay, so just it's like a side little life coaching life tip with Rian, right? So in regards to energy vampires, these are people who are really not in it for that connection we were just talking about. They're having relationships, or let's not even categorize it that deep, because what if they're just like in a bad space for that day? But they're having interactions because they want to get something out of those interactions. They're not thinking to themselves, what can I contribute to the situation? How can I show up in service of the collective or my friendship or my relationship or whatever? They're like, what's in it for me? I need a boost. I need some good energy. I need someone to hear this. I am feeling something bad and I have to put it somewhere. So they use you. And in so doing, their energy drains your energy. And so it's really important for you to start to see or to be aware of where these people are. Now, the mindset that I carry, where I see everybody as neutral and I make people work really hard to be toxic towards me, that took a lot of practice. It took a lot of self-work, and most of self-work is self-coaching and talking to yourself through hard moments. But because I live this way where I'm just like, if someone's got some toxic vibes, like they can just go ahead and keep them. I literally refuse to accept someone else's toxic energy as much as possible, just because I just don't live like that anymore. But this is because I was conditioned to live submerged in someone else's toxic energy as I was growing up. And I purposely revoked that and was like, never again will I do that. So I don't let people be toxic to me for the most part. I mean, obviously no one's, 100% anything, but because I live like that, I can have interactions with energy vampires and I just fucking don't care. Sorry about the language. I really am working on it. And I really think I've done a good job with diminishing the amount of swearing that I do on this podcast, but it still sneaks through. Someone can try to like dump their negativity on me or show up in my DMs or show up in my, friends' night out or whatever and be having a problem and narrating their problem. And I'm just like, oh, that sucks. Like I let it sit with them because unless I'm being asked for my input or my advice, I don't give it. And this is a helpful thing for you to start to think about within yourself because the law of like obligation is very persistent within many of us, especially if we've been conditioned to pick up on the subtle cues of other people and then become performative. So if someone's in your space, like clearly upset, but they haven't said they're upset, you might have been conditioned to be like, what's wrong? Are you okay? I would like you to start to work on that. If someone is upset around you, consent teaches us that they need to initiate that conversation. And you can say a sentence that's like, I'm noticing you seem off. Are you all right? Do you want to talk about it? And then they get to decide whether they opt in or don't opt into that conversation. This takes practice, but it's very liberating because what it does for you is it frees you from the restriction of feeling like you have to perform at everyone's whim. Just because someone near you is in a vibe doesn't mean that you have to deal with it. That's not your job. Unless you're being paid to be their therapist or their life coach or whatever, it's not your job. So you don't have to be like, what's going on? Let's talk. Because one of the reasons that energy vampires are successful is that they're depleting you of your energy. I guarantee that most of you who jump in to help someone with their vibe, you're not saying to yourself first, do I have the emotional capacity to do this right now? You're just kind of martyring yourself to the fact that there is an energy around you that feels like it's demanding something from you. And that is so uncomfortable for you to hold that you will do anything to make it go away, including engaging with a person who is radiating negative vibes. Do you hear that? Like, really the root of seeking to help these people, and this is a hard one, so just like hold your breath and like know that I'm sorry if this lands gross for you, but the root of it for most people is that you are so uncomfortable sitting with that energy around you that you will even sacrifice your own peace to try to make it go away. Now, an energy vampire is subliminally, if not consciously, aware of this. And so they will be like, I have a mood. You know what? I'm going to go talk to that person because they can't stand me being in a mood and they always help me. Stop the cycle. Break the curse. Don't do the thing. Okay? Don't do it. If you aren't in a space that you want to hold someone else's energy, don't dig into it. I would rather you train yourself to be uncomfortable with someone feeling their own feelings around you and you not dealing with them for that person than for you to continue to just destroy yourself by going into everyone else's energy and depleting your own as a result. This is hard, but it is very, very powerful and empowering and liberating for you. Plus, it stops you from overriding someone else's energy field. A person might not want to talk about their problems, but because of our own discomfort with being around their energy, they might force themselves to share, and then they don't feel very safe, or we're hearing things that aren't processed, and blah, blah, blah. Consent is important in all areas of life, including conversations. Hey, do you have a second? Can I talk to you about something? That's getting consent. Do you want to talk to me about what's going on with you, or do you need some time or space? Like, how can I help? That's consent. And then be okay with someone saying, I don't really want to talk right now. And if you are still super uncomfortable being around them when they're radiating some kind of vibe, well, that's on you, sis. Get up and go to a different room. Or get up and do something else. Or just be like, okay, well, I'm around if you ever do want to talk. I'm sending you love. And go do anything else with yourself. If it's super uncomfortable that you can't help but dig into it, move away from it. But an energy vampire is going to seek you out if you're this kind of person who is willing to absorb all their bad vibes, because they themselves are very uncomfortable holding the bad vibes. And so they want you to fix it for them. There is a rule in life coaching, and I've talked about this with my academy students, and it says, like, you cannot work harder on someone else's own goals than they themselves are working on their own goals. Don't work harder for someone else's life than they're working on their own life. It's hard because you can perceive so clearly in somebody else what they're needing, but that doesn't mean that you can fix it for them. And you will wear yourself out and wear yourself down trying to solve other people's problems for them. A person has to consent to having their problem solved, and then they have to do the work themselves. You can be supportive. You can hold space and listen. You can be there for them, but you literally can't solve another person's problems for them, and you're just going to exhaust yourself by trying. But there is like a whole relationship between an energy vampire and the victim of an energy vampire, and I don't think that part gets discussed enough. I think that there's a lot of demonizing of the energy vampire, and that's legit, because to show up and only care about yourself and not have consent to be like, can I vent to you? Are you available to talk to me about something? I'm feeling really bad. Like, I need some space. Like, to not have consent in that direction is also bad. Someone should be asking you if you can help them. Do you have the capacity to hold space for them? Do you have the ability to listen? Do you have the ability to share advice? Like, these are all, consent works both ways. So the energy vampire is not caring about you and your energy and the space that you're in, especially if they're also a narcissist. But it's still up to both of you to interact with one another. The vampire's depositing bad energy. You have decided that you are like a laundromat for bad energy, and you're going to take it in and clean it and fix it and do all the things. But really, you're just assigning yourself all these tasks, and you're running on a hamster wheel. But an energy vampire is also going to come in, ask for your advice, ask for your thoughts. You're going to get deeply invested in whatever's happening with them. You're going to feel upset on their behalf. You're going to want to rant and rave. You're going to feel like all triggered out or dysregulated in some capacity. You're going to take on a lot of this situation, but it's a road that leads to nowhere. And the reason for that is because you can't solve other people's problems for them. So you will have all this upset energy and feel all upset and like thrown off your piece. And there's no recourse for you. There's nothing you can do about it. So you've now just become a container that holds a lot of negativity. And the things that you're saying or doing when you're interacting with an energy vampire, they don't go anywhere. That person doesn't take your advice. They don't listen. They're not even complaining in order to have resolution. They are complaining for the sake of complaining. They are dumping on you. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to live that life. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to receive just endless negative energy for no apparent reason. Now, it's different if you have a friend who is going through a very hard time on a regular basis, and they're seeking advice and they're seeking support, and they're actually listening to you, or they're actually making progress. Like, they'll talk themselves in a circle, you'll point the circle out, or they'll realize they'll have some type of breakthrough moment, and then it's all worth it. Because then you've done a nice thing and you've held a space for a person, and it has that you holding that space has allowed them to shift within themselves. But realize they are doing the shifting. You might provide the space for it, but they're ultimately doing the things. You might provide the advice, but they're ultimately taking the advice or thinking about the advice or processing the advice. If you are an empath and you are constantly being drained by someone else, whether they're talking directly to you or not, that person might be identifiable as a energy vampire. And let's not go too deep with titles because, again, this word can, or this phrase can be applicable to some people and not applicable to other people. And it's not some, like I said, it's not some terminal diagnosis. Somebody could just be in a space for a day and that's just who they are that day. But it's still important for you to be aware. I guess what I'm saying is be aware of when these energy vampire situations come up and then attempt to have like detachment from it. Meaning, I don't necessarily think that it's productive or helpful for you to diagnose a whole person as being an energy vampire and then to throw that sentence in their face or anything. I mean, occasionally, eventually, if it's repeated, perhaps it's helpful for you to know that. But it's good for you to have awareness when these moments are happening, that that's probably what's going on. So once you've kind of diagnosed that this is what's going on, I think it's important for you to be able to quantify that and speak to yourself about it. And as a side note, you know, a lot of my coaching practice is centered on helping people get out of toxic or abusive relationship dynamics. And there's this thing that always happens when the light bulb clicks on for someone and they're like, oh my gosh, this person's abusive. They immediately want to go to the abuser and say, did you know you're abusive? I just figured out you're abusive. And this never really goes well because a person who's truly abusive isn't going to be like, oh my gosh, now I feel like a changed person. I'm going to change my ways. Like that doesn't happen. Instead, what they do is they realize you're onto them and they get sneakier about it, or they get more abusive, or they get more harmful, or they gaslight the actual hell out of you. And it's never a good thing. The same thing is true with like identifying someone as an energy vampire. You might be like, you're just an energy vampire. That's not going to help the situation. It's, if anything, going to cause you more drama. And then they're going to unload all their feelings about you all over you. And they're going to be toxic towards you, or they're going to tell you about yourself in a way that's skewed and probably inaccurate. But you're going to walk away feeling terrible about yourself. It is absolutely okay for you to know something about someone and not inform them about themselves. Again, that goes back to consent. Unless someone rolls up at you and is like, hey, what do you think about me? I don't know if it's appropriate to tell people what your perception is about them. But especially if they're being harmful for you or towards you, I don't see any reason to let them know like, hey, you're a toxic person. Now, this doesn't apply when we're setting boundaries, but that's a whole different conversation. And I have boundaries on my list for a podcast topic, so we'll talk about it then. But just guard yourself. If someone is actually showing you they're harmful, you don't need to tell them that you've diagnosed them as harmful, because you're still all up in their energy and they can still harm you. So you can know, oh, this friend of mine is like being an energy vampire today, or in general, or whatever the case may be. And then you can seek to have boundaries and to modify your own behavior around them. You'll know you're around an energy vampire if you're feeling stressed in their presence, if you feel like you can't stand it, if it makes you very, very irritable to be around them, if you feel as if you are just kind of like repeatedly hitting your head against the wall and saying the same things over and over again with no changed results, if you dread seeing their name on your phone, if you dodge their texts, if you are kind of like, I don't think I can go if that person's going to be there, or like if you also have a system in which you signal to your other friend when this person's talking to you and they come rescue you, you're dealing with an energy vampire. The first thing I want you to know is it's okay to not like somebody. We all feel super bad when we don't like a person. We all feel super bad when we need boundaries around a person. You could listen, the person in my life who is in an energy vampire stage, I like this person very much. I love this person. But right now, I am like, oh my gosh, I need boundaries around this person because they are in a certain type of space. I don't feel bad about that. I am aware that they're in a certain type of space, but I'm also aware that I am under no obligation to just accept that. I need to have boundaries. So I limit my ability or my access to this individual. If I do decide to talk to them, I I have a conversation with myself ahead of time. I amp myself up. I expect nothing from the exchange. I expect myself to kind of like say a lot of the same things or to just listen. And then I kind of breathe deeply at the end of it. And at the beginning of the call, I give myself an out for the end of the call. I say, oh, I only have a couple minutes, but I wanted to check in. That way I can say, hey, I really got to get going, but it was so nice to talk to you. Because I do love this person and I am aware that they are in a phase, but I'm also aware that just because they're in a phase doesn't mean I have to be in a phase with them. And the same is true for you. You can like a person, you can love a person, and you can still have to have some really fierce boundaries around them. And if someone is draining your energy in any capacity or taking you out of your peace, that is a signal for you that you are allowed to have some boundaries about it. And you don't have to feel bad and you don't have to justify that. And you don't need to have someone else tell you that it's okay to do that. You're allowed to tell yourself that it's okay. You are allowed to be the authority in your own life. You know yourself. You know your truth. You know that if a person is currently draining you, it's probably best for you to practice having boundaries and doing things differently and to not grant them access to your energy if it is like sucking the life out of you. Okay? Sometimes energy vampires are permanent. Sometimes they're transient. If you are an empath, this means that you really feel the feelings of other people. And it also means that you're very permissive with your energy. Empaths notoriously don't tend to have great boundaries about their energy fields. This is because they are reading everyone else's energy around them, both people and places and objects and situations. An empath is sensitive to a situation, meaning an empath can pick up on the dynamic between people very clearly. Have you ever been at someone's house and like the two hosts are like in an argument secretly, but they're like fake smiling, but you know that stuff's weird between them? That's you being an empath to the situation at hand. Empaths don't have great energy boundaries because they're reading everything around them, but that also means that their energy is a little bit open. So as an empath, you want to make sure that you are kind of protecting and guarding your own energy and closing it off. And you're allowed in the middle of a stressful environment to like visualize like a brick wall going up and around your energy field so that no one can access you, but you're also not reading all of that either. Okay? So practice using your empath skills to shield yourself from energy vampires. The second you catch that vibe, force field around yourself, like, oh, I'm not dealing with that. And then you allow them to sit with themselves. It is not harmful to let someone be with their own energy. And if it is harmful, that's all the more reason why you need to do it, because you don't want to take their energy into you and become harmed yourself. And if they're allowed to deposit their harmful energy onto everybody else, they are never left alone with it, so they will never work through it themselves. We really can't fix other people. An energy vampire is moving from one person to another in order to try to seek that healing energy or to just get rid of whatever's going on within them. But it ultimately doesn't work because they will run out of people and eventually they will be alone with themselves and have to deal with it themselves. And people either make one of two decisions. They change and they do self-work and they have a awakening in their life, or they get more themselves and more cranky and more set in their ways and more hateful. And that's sad and that's hard and it's unfortunate. But it's not something you want to drink in and take into your own body. You are not a purification plant for other people's energy. That is not your job. The most you can do is offer alternative perspectives. You can say, it sounds like you're feeling really bad. Like, do you want to change this? Like, do you want to talk through how you can feel differently? Because I can do that all day. But if you just want to feel worse or continue feeling bad, I'm not your person. That's allowed. You know, just because someone wants you to fix them doesn't mean that it is your job or your capability to do so. And I just want you to think about that. especially when we think of folklore around vampires, right? The folklore around vampires is that a vampire must be invited in. And isn't that metaphorical? So like a vampire in folklore can't enter your home unless you say, come on in, which I am not saying. If there are any vampires listening, you are not invited into my house. But you can't say that to, no, I got all distracted by thinking about vampires listening to this podcast episode. But if you don't invite them in, they cannot enter your space. Isn't that the same with someone who is seeking to mine us for our positive energy? If we have excellent boundaries, they can't come in and steal all our good vibes and leave us depleted and dying and taken out of our own peace. And how do vampires work, right? They bite you and then you're a vampire too. So an energy vampire is going to come in and they're going to spread their negative vibes. They're going to fill you up with all their negative energy. And then they're going to leave. And then you're going to be all full of negative energy. And then you're going to find someone else and you're going to be like, oh my God, everything's bad, and like freak out. And then that person's going to be all full of negative energy. And in this way, bad vibes spread like wildfire and are contagious to other people. But you yourself can practice good skills, and you yourself can wash your hands and prevent the spread of negative energy by cleansing your energy field and having good boundaries. That's what we're trying to do. We can acknowledge that someone's going through a hard time. I can say to the person I know, everything sounds really hard for you right now. I love you and I'm here for you. But I don't know what to do, but I will always be your friend. But I don't have to say let me take on all of your energy and then become super stressy negative as well, and then spread that from one person to another. I have to kind of mind my own self and mind my own resources so that when that person actually shifts to a place of wanting to solve the problem, I'm not burned out on them. I'm not over it. I'm actually able to show up and listen and be there and help them when they're ready for help. But I have to let them spin their tires a little bit first and become kind of sick of their own energy so they get to the point that they're willing to shift it themselves. Try to be aware of where you're inviting in energy that you don't want, and then try to empower yourself to further get rid of that energy once it's in. Once the vampire's in your house, you can cast it back out. You can say, you're uninvited. You need to leave immediately. Command it out. And you can do that with anything in your life that doesn't align with who you want to be or how you're trying to live. I hope this was helpful. Please send me any questions that you might have, or if you have idea for podcast episodes, I'd love to hear it. So hit me up on any of my social media, and I'd love to see you in any of the number of places. And thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful day.